What meaning have you assigned to the most challenging, maybe the most difficult experience of your life? And the follow-up question I ask you and I to consider together in our Divine Destiny study today of Come Follow Me is, what meaning do you think that the Lord has assigned? Now, you know where we are. We're studying Joseph in Egypt, and what a wonderful story it is. But my friends, it's also a story that sometimes we like to read more than we like to place ourselves in Joseph's shoes, because you will be placed in Joseph's shoes. Imagine his life. And we will spend a fair amount of this week talking about his life and the different things that took place, but I want to do so by sharing a few different stories instead of just his story. I want to share some other stories. And the reason I do that, or want to do that, is because I want you to imagine you and me to imagine me and understand that this isn't just a story about Joseph. It's a story about the human experience, and what happened to Joseph is going to happen to you. I'm not saying your brothers are going to sell you away into Egypt, but I am going to say that maybe your life isn't going to go the way that you planned. You remember the life that Joseph had. He was given a coat of many colors, much like this shirt that I'm wearing today, by his father. And he was given visions that he was going to live a blessed life. And then all of a sudden, his life changed more drastically than he ever could have imagined. Have you ever had that happen to you? He did. And what he did with it, my friends, is what I want you and I to do and understand and study. And I want us to get to the point where we have this phrase in our mind. As Joseph's brothers came back to him in Egypt, and we'll follow this story, but just a quick verse. You remember when his brothers came back, they didn't understand or remember who he was, but once they did, then they feared for their life because of the greatness of what Joseph had become. But this phrase Joseph used in the 50th chapter of Genesis, in verse 20, he said this: "But as for you," he's talking to his brothers now, "ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people." My friends, whatever circumstance you are in, even if people did mean evil unto you, even if you did mean to accidentally do so, I say mean to accidentally. We don't accidentally do things. We do them on purpose, whether they're calculated or not. But my point is, the same thing that happens in the Doctrine and Covenants when the Lord told Joseph, the 90th section of the Doctrine and Covenants, search diligently, pray always, and be believing, for all things will work together for your good. My friends, whether they are on purpose, whether it's an experience that you are supposed to have, whether it's one that you inflict upon yourself, this experience that Joseph has with his brothers can and will happen for you and I. I want to share with you just one such life that I look at a lot. It's March Madness, man, friends. Today begins the madness which is known as March in basketball. And if you're not a basketball fan, you probably won't be super aware of that. But you've heard of March Madness. You've heard of the brackets. You've heard of the 64 teams and the amazing miracles that can happen in basketball happen in March. For the next 2 weeks, my friends, I invite you to just watch, because they share the human experience. And I just want to share just one such story with you from a gentleman back in 1983. His name was Jim Valvano, and he won the national championship at NC State, something that nobody expected. Why? Because their team was a 10-loss team. 10-loss teams don't go very far in basketball, but they did that year. And there's several reasons why, and they're a lot because Jim Valvano did some of the things that Joseph did. Now, do I think he knew that? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know that for sure. But I know that Joseph was a son of our Heavenly Father. I know that Jim Valvano was a son of our Heavenly Father. And I know Heavenly Father. And I know you're one of his children. And I know that you're as important to him as Joseph was, as Jim Valvano was. And if you and I will learn the patterns that Heavenly Father uses, one of them is he invites you and I to do just what Joseph did, to visualize, to learn, to understand that all experiences can be meant for your good. Jim Valvano does it here. Let me just read to you something about his life, and it's a brief synopsis. This is not in any way going to begin to help you understand all of it, but it gives you a little bit of perspective. NC State had a 10-loss team and no business winning the national championship. They beat the most dominant teams in basketball anyway throughout history. They won a national championship on a prayer at the buzzer. Then their coach changed the world. A six-seeded underdog who practiced cutting down the nets before his team ever won a national championship game became the voice of an entire generation in a fight against cancer. A six-seeded underdog, that was Jim Valvano, but let me take you back to what he did at 17 years old. So his lifespan included a lot of things, including dying of cancer, but changing the world through the Valvano Institute with cancer. At 17 years old, standing in his bedroom in Seaford, Long Island, he wrote down his life goals on an index card. This is what he wrote down on that card. My friends, I want you to think about what Jim Valvano did, because as you study Joseph's life, they're similar. They're things that Joseph did. Whether you're talking about writing things down, whether you're talking about visualizing, whether you're talking about praying, they all are included together. He wrote down on this card, play basketball in high school and college, become an assistant coach, become a head coach, win at Madison Square Garden, cut down the nets after winning a national championship. And then he carried that card that he wrote at 17 years old with him every day throughout the rest of his life. His father, Rocky Valvano, was a high school basketball coach. His grandfather came through Ellis Island from Naples, Italy. The family lived under the elevated train tracks in Corona, Queens before moving to Long Island. Jimmy was the middle of three sons, the loudest, the one who never stopped talking. He played a point guard at Rutgers University. He graduated with a degree in English in 1967. He got named the Senior Athlete of the Year. Then he started coaching. His first head coaching job was at Johns Hopkins University. He gave them their first winning season in 24 years. 2 years later, he was an assistant at Connecticut. 3 years as a head coach then at Bucknell. Then 5 years as a head coach at Iona, where he took them to their first NCAA appearance. In 1980, NC State Wolfpack hired Jim Valvano. And for 3 years, nothing happened. His teams were good, but not great. Not championship material. The ACC had people like Dean Smith from North Carolina, Ralph Sampson at Virginia, and some guy named Mike Krzyzewski building something at Duke. NC State finished in the middle of the ACC in 1983, 8 wins and 6 losses. Everyone said the same thing. They're not good enough. They can't compete with Virginia or North Carolina. Valvano's a great talker, but he doesn't have the talent. They'll be lucky to even make the tournament. But he didn't listen. My friends, you start to see some similarities between what Joseph experienced and what Jim Valvano does. I'm not comparing them equally, my friends. I'm saying that there's similarities. And that's because both are sons of Heavenly Father, who Heavenly Father loves and cares about. And He inspires and helps them. If you and I will learn these patterns, you and I can have the kinds of experiences. And I know you're saying, I don't want to have the kinds of experiences Joseph did, but you're going to. And as you do, you can learn that God meant them for good. Let us continue with Jim Valvano. He didn't listen. Here's what Valvano knew that everyone else missed. You don't have to be the best team. You just have to survive and advance. He did something that nobody else would have done. Every year at practice, he brought out no basketballs for one practice. None. Instead, he had the players practice cutting down the nets, climbing the ladder, snipping a piece of the nylon, celebrating, not if they won a championship, but when. He drilled this vision into them until it became real. NC State had to win the ACC tournament just to get into the bracket. The tournament field was only 52 teams in 83. No backdoor, no win or go. It was win or go home. They beat Wake Forest 71-70. They beat North Carolina in overtime. They beat number 1 ranked Virginia 63-62 in the ACC tournament championship. That's when people started paying attention. Their NCAA tournament path was a death march. They beat Pepperdine in double overtime. They beat 6th ranked UNLV 71-70. They beat Utah. Then they beat number 1 seeded Virginia again by the same score, 63-62 in the West Regional Final. 4 wins by a combined 6 points. Then came April 4th of 1983. The Pit in Albuquerque, New Mexico, the national championship game, NC State versus Houston. Houston was the number 1 team ranked in the country. 26-game winning streak led by 2 future Hall of Famers, Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler. Those names won't mean anything unless you're basketball fans, and if you are, you know. Their team had been nicknamed the Phi Slamma Jamma. They dunked so much it was like watching a highlight reel on repeat. They had just destroyed Louisville 94-81. 50 million people tuned in to watch. Nobody gave NC State even a chance to win. NC State was a 6 seed, 10-loss team. They were the 4th best team in their own conference that year. But Valvano had a plan. Slow down the game. Force Houston out of transition. Make them play half-court basketball. And when the moment came, exploit the weakness no one talked about. Houston only shot 60.9% from the free throw line. NC State led 33-25 at halftime. Clyde Drexler picked up 4 fouls in the first half and couldn't stay on the floor. Hakeem Olajuwon left the game multiple times to receive oxygen. Then Houston came out with a 17-2 run in the second half, taking the lead 42-35. Most coaches would have panicked, not Valvano. His strategy was simple. Foul Houston. Stop the clock. Force them to the line. It worked. NC State clawed back. Then they fouled Franklin. The kid was the youngest player on the roster. NC State believed a freshman couldn't handle the pressure of a championship free throw with 50 million people watching. Franklin missed. NC State grabbed the rebound and Valvano called timeout with 44 seconds left. He drew up the plan. Run the play clock down to 10 seconds. Pass to Derek Whittenburg. Let him take the final shot. But Houston switched to a half-court defense, a trap at timeout, something they hadn't done all game. The Wolfpack scrambled. The ball ended up in Thurl Bailey's hands, then back to Whittenburg near half court. The clock was dying. Whittenburg launched a desperate shot from 30 feet out. It was short, an air ball. But Lorenzo Charles was standing right under the basket. Olajuwon hesitated, afraid of goaltending call. Charles grabbed the ball in midair and slammed it through the hoop with 1 second left, and NC State won the game 54-52. That's when everything changed. And if you remember this experience, my friends, it gets replayed on ESPN all the time. Jim Valvano's running around the court looking for someone to hug, I suppose. They won. This dream of a little kid who nobody thought could happen, happened. And there's a lot more to that story, my friends. He ends up in some more challenges, just like Joseph. There was some things that happened in NC State, and he lost his job there because they were saying there were some improprieties that took place and some things with the kids. And it may or may not have been his fault, but he lost everything there. He ended up going into announcing, and he became a fabulous announcer. But then he ended up getting cancer, and he actually ended up dying. But if you want to have a speech of a lifetime, go pull up Jim Valvano's speech at the ESPYs just a few days before he died and listen to it. My point with that story is that you have a story. Joseph had a story. We all have a story. And in that story, I can promise you, no matter what you think is going on in your life, your Heavenly Father can and will use it for good. And in many cases, just like the life of Joseph, even though it might seem like it's not going in the direction that it's supposed to, and that's most of the time, my friends, your Heavenly Father is using those experiences to build you into the person that you need to be, that He needs you to be, so that you and I can become all that we were meant to be in the divine destiny that we have waiting for us. Have a wonderful day.